What drives winning? What allows teams to win championships? But not just one championship, teams that win year after year. Follow me on this journey to talk with coaches all across the country to uncover what separates average teams versus champions. Hey, my name is Ryan Romano, and I'm your host here on the Championship Corner podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of the Championship Corner. We've revamped it, rebranded it to really bring you like deep insights on like what drives winning and what's the big difference between like average and championship. And I'm super excited today to kick off this season with the man, the myth, the legend, my homie, Dom Palange, who is former UCLA Assistant Gymnastics Coach, two times world cheer champion, and 18 years coaching experience. So super excited to have you on, my man. Like, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll kind of jump in. So with all that coaching experience that like you've had at various different levels, like in your opinion, like what would be some of those things that really separate like whether the teams that you've worked with, teams that you've studied, or teams that you've just been around, but like what are some of those big differences like between average teams and like championship teams? And I think like average teams is like I would define as like they're trying to have good seasons, and maybe they like live like on like I call it like the roller coaster. They have a big year, like a big up year, and then they have like a big down year, versus like championship teams I think hit that consistent level, like vying to be on top of like podiums like year after year to win national titles, compete for conference championships. Like what are some of those like separators like between those two?
It's funny because we used to talk about this a lot. Have you ever seen John Wooden's Pyramid of Success?
Actually, I don't think I have.
Oh, you'd probably love it. It's really it's interesting. And you can read books about him. Like we always talk about John Wooden, but I feel there is this. One of the cornerstones is enthusiasm. And I think it kind of gets confused with, enthusiastic being high, happy energy. Enthusiasm just being having passion and really going for every little aspect matters. And, everything, every day you have all these choices. Everything you do is a choice, and it's going to either positively or negatively affect you or the team. Kind of living by that, I think, is one difference I've seen for different years. And having really strong leadership, having a senior class or those upperclassmen really take in the freshmen and get them going from the start, and really taking them and lifting them up to be the best version they can be right from the start. That's what I noticed and seen huge differences from year to year. But I think average to great teams are going from believing it's possible and not just saying the words, but actually believing it in themselves with that passion and enthusiasm.
That's interesting, because it's like one of the concepts that I didn't learn until like, years after even I was like competing as an athlete. But it was like this concept of like shifting from like believing to knowing, right? Like,
yeah,
like some people can like I believe it's going to happen, versus like, there's those like people, it's like, no, like I know, like without a shadow of a doubt, like this is going to happen. And they like basically manifest like all the things that they want, whether it be in life or sports.
Yeah. And I think not getting distracted or having that wave at all. I think that's the most important part, is having that confidence that it's going to happen, and you'll do everything knowing that it might be possible that it might not, but you're going to give it all you have. And not get distracted or get deterred from thinking that it won't or can't. I think knowing it can happen and knowing it will happen are super important.
Yeah, actually, that's I like that. I might steal that too. You mentioned like for people like make decisions, like choosing like what it is like they actually want. In your experience, have you found that to be difficult for like most people? Because when I talk to people, I feel like people are just so freaking indecisive, right? Like, yeah. Step one is decide, like make a decision.
Right. I think that's the biggest thing. Make a decision, even if it might be the wrong one, make one. Having any sort of certainty. You can fix a mistake. Everyone makes a mistake. You can fix a mistake, but living in indecisiveness isn't going to get you anywhere. It's being in purgatory. You're just going to be stuck. You're going to stay exactly where you are, and nothing will change if you don't just make a decision and go in a path or in a direction.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like one of my new mentors now, he always gives the analogy. He's like, hey, if we're gonna travel together, do you want to like show up with no car or a broken car? I was like, a broken car. He's like, yeah, like we can fix a broken car. We can make this road trip happen. If you don't show up with shit, like if you don't have a car, then like we're not going anywhere.
You're out of luck. You got to figure it out. You got to hitchhike. No one wants to rely on, that's not safe.
Yeah. So what about like same kind of question, but like culturally, right? Like, because I feel like culture is another one of those like buzzwords that gets like tossed around and like people say it and use it, but they don't really know like what it means or like how to build it. Like, I guess that let's start there is like, how would you define like culture? And then the follow-up would be is like, once you've defined like what culture is like, how do you really develop like excellent, great championship style like culture to like build a program?
Yeah, I think I was going to answer your second question first.
That's all right. Go there.
I think for coaches and athletes alike is understanding that culture. It takes time, and we see it happen a lot. I think now expecting results, even if it was in any sport. Excuse me. You get a new head coach, or you get a new coach, or you get a new assistant, or you have a new athlete, and you think that these big changes are going to happen, whether it's 6 months or even in 1 year. Developing culture for a program is going to take years. And I think that's something that's important that everyone needs to keep in mind, and having that pulled back perspective, not looking at every little thing and blowing it up into a big culture. Not every little thing is a product of the culture. I mean, sometimes things happen, or that's how you navigate, and just kind of take everyone feeling like they're way over here, people that were way over here, and just making it a little smaller so everyone can kind of come together and work together to get that championship mindset and championship team.
Yeah. Because I feel like in being around teams is like even in conversations that I have like with some coaches, like, man, like we got good culture. I'm like, well, so like, what are you doing? They're like, man, like we check the grades. Like we've got like, they use like, especially more so probably in like female sports is like, they come up with like the clever, cute, like acronyms, like for the year. And they have like, whatever like meaning behind it. And it's like, but it never really like, it never resonates. They probably don't even remember it, to be quite honest, right? It's like, it just becomes words on paper, like to me. And then I feel like you're doing it year after year after year. So like nothing like, there's no identity actually established, right? Like, it's just
right.
Like, it's like, hey, this is what we're supposed to do. Like, we're supposed to go on like a retreat. We're supposed to like figure out like what like our buzzwords are for this year. And then like, hopefully everybody remembers them, and then like maybe we live them out, like maybe we don't, and if we do, like, yay, we had a good season kind of type thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when you see the result too in those first 2 weeks, or you see everyone really bought into it at first, and then it fizzles away, and then you either have to go back and revisit, or you have to come up with a new word or a new way to affect them or affect the team and get them back on track. Yeah, instead of having, those, and every year, like you said, it can change from what you want that year. And I think what's important, I think that can work, especially in ways that it's about creating good habits. I think that's always the best thing to do. Rather than use it just strictly for motivation, use it for building championship habits. And
yeah, because most people, they don't really know like what, like, they don't know what their individual identity is. So much less do they really know like what like the team identity is. Like, if you had to ask people like, how do you describe your team? Like, I don't know. What do you mean? I'm like if you were going to like recruit somebody here, like if you had to go out, like like how would you describe this team? right? And you get all the generic answers like, well, we're family oriented, we're friendly, we're united, we're cohesive, right? It's like, okay, like you haven't separated yourself from anybody.
Right. Yeah, you hear those I don't want to call them trigger words, but the
buzzwords, right?
The buzzwords, that's the
common,
buzzwords,
yeah,
the buzzwords. Well, of course, those are going to hopefully be there. It's a team. That's what we're all there to do. I think why I enjoyed UCLA so much was, and we've had some recruits even say this, or the parents say this, they liked the structure we had was a lot more of a it's a little more of a push and pull, or like not a push and pull, but the rope's a little looser. So, here's what you're supposed to do, or here's, what we're doing today, or here's your workload. But, and in general, I'm not going to be on you. Good culture isn't just me going, pointing the finger. It's knowing that if this is what you want, here are some guidelines, here's a way, here's everything that I can give you. Let's give you every resource, and let's give you in the gym and out of the gym. And I can't sit here and force you to do it. But at the same time, if this is what you want, there are choices you're going to have to make, or not going to say sacrifices, but if maybe that one more could have been the idea, or maybe you don't need that day. Maybe it's like a little back off, give yourself a little slack, or see how much progress you've been making, but giving them the workload and giving them every opportunity, but not necessarily, pointing the finger and being, this is exactly what you need. This is the only way it can be done. Like it can be done more than one way. I guess that's what a long way of saying it. There's more than one way to get the same results.
And I feel like today, like that's become more, not even just in sports, I think in the business world too, is people crave like autonomy, like more than anything. It's like, here's a project, get it done, right? Like here's an assignment, like as long as you do it, like I don't care if you do it from home or what, like obviously like in the business world, right? Okay, if you have a project, then like if you can get it done not being in the office, and like cool, great, like that's fine.
Yeah.
Like if you want to do it on Saturday and Sunday, okay, like what's the difference in doing it on Thursday versus if it gets done before the deadline? And so I think a lot of athletes are like being drawn towards that too. Like here's your assignment, here's what you're supposed to be able to get done today. Now, like go do.
Yeah, go do, and I'll help you. I think it's more like it's lifting up the athlete coming, I'm here to help you, not I'm here to tell you what to do all the time.
So that leads me to think, so I heard this years ago from Tony Robbins, and he was like, it was this idea of like, he point blank said, he was like, people never lack resources, they lack being resourceful. Right? Like we're gonna make the excuse like I don't have the time, I don't have the internet, I don't have the money, I don't have the technology, like whatever it is. And in sports, right? It's time, it's facilities, it's the type of athlete, like whatever it is, for that person, that program. And so it's interesting. Let me ask you this: have you felt in coaching that sometimes that like that's a big hurdle, like to get them to understand it's like literally you have like all the resources you possibly need, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally. It's like freaking use them.
Yeah. And I had the thought in my head when you were talking, or when I finished my last time, it's knowing that is going to take time. Again, that's a process. It is a process. And you see it, especially in college, you see our college students, they're moving away from home, they're living on their own for the first time, they're making choices. That's what you do. You go to college, you figure out who you are, you make mistakes, or you figure out who you are. There's a lot of ups and downs for that, but knowing that it's going to be a process, it's not going to take, that realization is not necessarily the aha moment that everyone wishes or thinks it is. Like you wake up one day and all of a sudden I'm changed. You just see the process slowly happen, and then I feel like what happens a lot of times, you have that conversation, go, okay, but take a second, look where you were and who you were before, whether that was a year, 2 years, or from freshman year, and look where you are now. Isn't it incredible where you come from in your journey, and how much more yourself you are, how much you understand things, not just by learning it in one day. You learned all those little experiences, all the ups and downs created who you are and got you to where you are today. But if that was a result of using those resources, that would most of the time, and understanding it's always my seniors usually is when they really utilize all the resources and see them for what they are. It can make their lives so much easier if they just utilize all their resources.
Or
And
even
like,
from a
why didn't I
coaching
do this from the
perspective.
start? You're like, I don't know, because you had to learn the hard way. You had to go through it all. That's life. Everything's hindsight. Everything's.
And I feel like too is when they first get there, like they understand that like here's this journey and like I'm supposed to like find out who I am and like who do I want to be in life and like what are the things that inspire me and draw me towards that. And I feel like early on is they don't understand that they're supposed to uncover this. It's like, okay, I show up at college, like I'm like somebody's like supposed to tell me, right? Like somebody's supposed to point me in the direction of like where the rest of my life goes. I'm like, no. Like that's for you to decide. Like you got to figure out these answers. I feel like that's very difficult for a lot of them to like, oh shit, going back to decisions, right? Like, damn, like I got to make these decisions for myself. It's like, unfortunately, yes.
Yes, unfortunately, yeah. And you create, and again, habits too. You start making decisions that you never had to make, or you get the opportunity to make and be on your own and live on your own. And maybe some of those decisions aren't the best, create the best habits. And then you don't realize it. And then you have to go back and fix it or go, and that's part of the journey. And no one can tell you what to do. But you gotta, that's why I think that's why I've enjoyed college coaching so much, because you can, work with someone and figuring out who they are and help guide them. And it's a very rewarding, for me, it's always been a very rewarding experience.
Yeah. And there's like, once you start working with college, it's a maturity and an age thing too, right? Like they've had more life experiences. The intellectual conversations are way different than like with a 13-year-old, right? It's just different, right? Like you can go much deeper into life and understanding life and what it means and like how to create your own life versus like at 13, it's like, bruh, I do not care.
You live at this gym and we're going to do lots of numbers and yeah,
100%.
I agreed. And I agree. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. It's fascinating seeing them discover themselves and have all these light bulbs. Because I think when, we're working, or we're even working with kids that are in club, knowing knowing who they are is like, I know who you are. You just you haven't figured it out yet. I'm so excited for you to figure it out. Because when you do, you're going to be life's going to be great. You're going to have everything you want and it's going to be okay. Like life is going to be okay no matter what. Yeah. Life will be okay. You have to go through the downs and you have to go through it, but it's going to be okay.
Literally a conversation with an athlete yesterday and got off the phone and like followed up with a text and it basically said like, in any way, shape or form, if you believe in like the laws of karma or something similar, like great things happen to great people. And like, you're a really good person, like good things are coming, just peace of mind.
Oh, that's
like,
nice.
Like that's like, I think,
yeah.
At that age, everything is so stressful, so overwhelming. Like you almost wake up intentionally, like to make yourself overwhelmed because that becomes like the familiar you. It's like, I got to do this. Like, it's not that serious. It's okay. It's really.
And and it's sometimes it's like, okay, rather than get stressed, like let's learn how to manage this. Let's take that extra 5 minutes to plan out your day. I think Sam Pejic used to do that, and she does that still now. She even on like she plans out her day, everything. She gives herself time to like have her downtime during the day. She has it scheduled. It's not that you schedule mandatory fun, but like just having, I'm going to do this from this time. I'm going to do this from this time, and just sticking to that. It allows you to have this peace and comfort of, I know what I'm doing this day. It can either feel really restricting and feel, oh, I have to be on schedule, be on task, or it can find clarity in that, okay, I have time to do all these things and get everything done to the best of my ability. I think that's always been a huge thing when people start scheduling out their week or day,
Yeah. I even like notice, like I tell people, I'm like, okay, like when you write something, do you just write the thing or do you write like all 15 steps? You're like, oh, I write down everything. I'm like, no wonder you feel overwhelmed. Just write down like just the thing. Like you don't have to make 30 extra things like underneath it.
Keep it simple. Always keep it simple. When life gets complicated, just remember how simple it is.
Yeah.
It's always simple in theory, and it's always going to be easier said than done. But it's always me personally, in coaching and advice, whether it's in gymnastics or it's giving them life advice or helping them help, or myself. It's just keep it simple.
Yeah.
That's where the clarity is.
So that kind of like segues into, so I really break up into like being a like high performing athlete or high performing team, or honestly high performing coach. It's really like broken up into like three pillars. There's the physical side of it, there's the mental side of it, and then there's, to me, it's the lost art of being a high performer is like the emotional side of it. So I guess what's been some of the more like difficult pieces to like help athletes understand? Because I feel like in your sport, like they get the physical side of it. It's like I like tell them all the time. I'm like, to be a national champ, if you were told to do 10 minutes of cardio every single day, you would do it. No problem. Be easy.
Yeah.
Be easy. But like the mental and emotional side is like more of the struggle. And I'm curious, like, which pillar, which piece of the puzzle's been like the hardest to get across to like athletes you've worked with?
It's so hard because I think so many people, I mean, everyone's different.
Yeah.
I mean, so some people just need that little extra coaching for the mental, just to get them. They might be so stuck, but emotionally they're okay. Or maybe, they can go hand in hand, because sometimes, their mentality is right. It's coming from the good place, but it's actually stunting them emotionally because they're getting so frustrated because they're on that one track, and sometimes you need to just expand your mind of how, like we were saying before, you can get it done another way. But it's really hard because gymnasts are creatures of habit so much. I would probably say emotional is probably the hardest. And I don't know if you see this, and to me, that's always, the same story, but like in different fonts, because every generation goes, okay, this generation that's coming after us, how do we connect with them? And I feel like that was the generation before us and coaches. It happens every time. But I do think I do see a hard time with, I don't want to blame social media, but you're so curated. Everything is curated to you. Your experience, everything you experience and you see is yours. All the algorithms are to your experience. And I think people are emotionally more in their own, I don't say in their own lane, but more living in their own emotional world rather than empathizing or living in the world with everyone else. That was
No, I
really hard to get my thought out there.
Well, if like, tell me if I understand it a little bit too, is like everything that's pointed to them, it's very easy, since that's the way that they think. And then that's like the direction in their life they want to go towards. So it's much easier to compare, because like Instagram knows exactly who to put in front of you to be like, ah, shit, I'm not there yet. Or like, because
it's a highlight reel. So, everyone puts, mostly their ups and their highs, or their best pictures online. They live the best, they feel the most confident, or their successes, and in who they follow. I mean, you get to choose who you follow. So you're creating your own echo chamber a lot of times, not even realizing it. Plus, there are times that, you get the suggestions, you should follow this person because this is a similar interest. And I think that has been happening since they were young.
Yeah.
Whereas us, I feel like we saw the internet and social media come in, and we try to use it accordingly, or remember what it was like without it, or we've seen the development of how it used to be for fun, and then all of a sudden now it's how it's a marketing and advertising strategy. Everything feels like it's a business, or a brand. Before It didn't, and now everyone's their own brand, so everyone's their own business. But I think emotionally, they've had that since they were little kids. They're like iPad kids, we call them. Like, you know, they've had iPads since they're kids. They've had everything just kind of right there. I think it's sometimes hard to branch out of that.
And it makes it 10 times more, right? Like vulnerable, like it's the weird dichotomy of like vulnerability. It's like everyone, that's the most terrifying thing for most people, is to make themselves vulnerable because their fear of like pushing people away. But like vulnerability, like actually draws like everybody in towards you, right? Like the moment you're like, everybody's like, oh shit, like you too, you feel that way? Oh my God, like we're the same, right? Like,
yeah.
Now I connect with you on like a deep level, not just like we like the same football team or we like the same college or like whatever it is.
We like the same aesthetic looking. It's all the aesthetic now.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
But I think that you're right. I think that's probably the biggest hurdle things like social media have done is it becomes terrifying to put yourself out there because fear of being judged, fear of letting everybody down, fear of like not fitting in. Or it's like a silly example is like whenever I start with a team, like the very first thing I do is like I call it like giving like my backstory. So I don't like come in and like teach and like, oh, this is how we're gonna be great. Da, 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 da. I'm like, no, like I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna give you my backstory. And for basically an hour is like I tell them like why I suck. Like why, like how did I get here? Why should I be standing here, and give you 15 reasons of like why I probably shouldn't be here, but like this is what I did. And I'm like, how many people come in here and they're like, they give you their resume, right? They're like, man, I've coached like 20 national champions. I've worked with this team. I work with, like, we're going to come in and we're going to shift your mindset and we're going to be great. And everybody's like, I really don't give a shit. Right.
Yeah.
But like the moment somebody comes
I'm going to take you from here to here. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. But the moment somebody comes in, like for me, it's like, hey, like, have you guys ever been sad? Like, let me tell you, like, how many years like I felt sad and lonely and depressed. And let me give you like multiple stories of like in my life, especially in college, like when I felt that. And they're like, oh, okay. Like all of a sudden now they're like connected in some kind of way versus like trying to tell you how great I am. That doesn't build any connection at all.
Yeah. And kind of going off another one of those points you had in there, it's people don't really talk about how monotonous or how normal and unexciting a normal day is, and that's okay. You know, it's the training that you do, it's pretty similar. You know, you have to go to the gym and you try and make it fun and have game, whatever you do, but life's pretty monotonous. And it's wake up, go to practice, go to school, get your homework done, eat, and then it's pretty, and no one wants to talk about that. But that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to put that on their, no one's putting that on their highlight reel and making sure that everyone knows how regular everyone is. I mean, how normal everyone is. Everyone's just normal. Whether, an Olympic athlete, yes, they might have different habits and a different talent, ability, but at the same time, they're just a normal human being. They're just a person. Not just a person, but they're also a person. There's just this.
Yeah, that makes me think of, I forget where I heard this is, do you know like of like Tim Ferriss, the guy that wrote like the 4-Hour Work Week?
That sounds familiar, but
he's an author, like pretty well known in like I guess like personal development, kind of that type of world. And they were like, hey, like, can we come follow you around? And he was like, I mean, you can. He's like, it's gonna be pretty boring because he's like, I wake up, I have some coffee, and I think, then I go for a walk and I think. And he's like, I'm always just looking for like the one big idea, right? Like, he's like, but I'm always thinking, like, that's what my day is centered around. And they're like, oh.
Yeah, like, oh, so there's no secret, like, what's the secret? There is no real secret. There's no secret sauce. It's committing, knowing what you want and working at it, chipping away. Everything is chipping away. They chip away at it every day, little by little. That's why they get, the whole 1% better. There is truth to that. Just get 1% better. You don't need to make the big jump every day. Just try and get a little better every day. And maybe there are days you don't. And some days you're just having a bad day. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. You're having a bad day today. Today sucks. All right. So today sucks. We'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah. What do you feel like is the biggest negative emotion like college athletes deal with?
Ooh.
that they feel probably the most common every day trying to
I think it would go back to being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I think in gymnastics, you're still doing gymnastics, but you're becoming a different version of yourself. So sometimes there's that gymnastics almost has that hold of your youth, kind of like you're kind of still feel like you're still living the past life while trying to create a new one, but instead kind of figure out how to make those merge together. I think that's so feeling really overwhelmed by that and feeling stuck in the middle, feeling that where they get that indecisiveness and they feel stuck and they don't feel like they can make decisions. I think those two things kind of pull at each other. And they get overwhelmed. I would probably say that would be but are you talking like specifically athletically or just emotionally
just emotionally, like all of them. Yeah.
I think in the beginning, especially the first 2 years, freshmen and sophomores have that. And then by senior year, everyone's different, but I would say probably that.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so hard for people to make change?
I think people put in a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of hard work, especially in gymnastics. And I think this is something I see across the country or wherever we go. Keep it simple. You don't have to make it harder. Just make the change or make a change. And I think when you put so much time and effort to be a great athlete, you have to be stubborn.
Yeah.
And so you have to be stubborn. And because you have to believe in yourself or believe in that what you're going to do is going to work or that you can do it and nothing can distract you. Like we were saying before, you have to be stubborn, but that stubbornness can work against you. And I think after putting in so much effort, time, hard work into something, I think people have a hard time accepting that change could be a good thing rather than negative. I think they get stuck on, I've worked so hard this much and I've worked so much like this. I've worked so hard like this. If I had made a change, that invalidates all the hard work I did.
Ooh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that because that meant you were wasting your time. That meant all that hard work could feel like it was meant as nothing, even though that's not true. But I think it's just we're creatures of habit and we're stubborn. And the things that make you great can also be your biggest demise.
Yeah, because that's probably like the biggest hurdle, right? Like, because to me, it's getting coaches, athletes, whoever to understand. It's like you have to continue to upgrade like your identity, right? Like, it doesn't mean like you totally change per se, as like you go from like black to white, like a polar opposite, right? Like you keep some of those pieces of the puzzle. Like there's a gray area, but it's like now I've got to implement like new things because the idea is like, even if you win a national title, if you're the same person that shows up next year, it's like everybody knows, like, okay, like I got to get here, right? It's like,
right.
As long as I continue to upgrade like my identity and like who I am and the way that I see the world and the things that I believe and like how much knowing that I have in like myself, my abilities, my coaches, my teammates, the culture, the team, like whatever it is, it's like now you're at a point like no matter what you do, it's like you're never going to catch me because it's like I'm a chapter ahead. And
yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, 1,000%. I like that. Upgrading your identity, and
because I'll steal a quote from like my mentor. He told me the other day, he was like, "You don't get what you want, you get who you are." And I was like, "Damn." Right. So it's like you want like more. It's like now you have to become more as a person. So like attracts like, right? Like now you're bringing those people into your world. And I was like, shit.
Yeah. I've been living on this quote that's similar to that kind of. It's wherever you are, there you are. Like wherever you are, there you are. You know, nothing, you can change external things around you, but if you're not changing here, you're not dealing with whatever's going on in here and here, like you're still going to be. You have all the problems no matter where you are. You could be on the coast of Italy and maybe you're at the first, it's great, but you haven't solved anything. You haven't fixed anything. Wherever you are, there you are. You'll still be the same person wherever you are if you don't, like you're saying, almost like upgrade your identity. It's just, there you are.
Yeah.
And if you don't work on it, you're just going to stay exactly where you are.
100%. Yeah. That's the most, I would say, over the last, gosh, I don't know, 5 to 8 years, that's probably like the most powerful thing that I've learned, because it sounds so kind of hocus pocusy, right?
It sounds so cliche.
Yeah, like,
yeah,
be more, just change your identity, like shift your personality, the way you think, act, and feel, like the way that you see the world. So yeah, it's again another conversation. It was yesterday. It's like, it's basically, I was like, look, I will regret not telling you these things of like conceptually, like understanding the world. You can see it as voodoo, however you want, but like, I gotta tell you.
yeah. And everything, again, hindsight's 2020, because it's, as you go through life, you just realize how simple it really was. It is. And trying to give athletes that advice, it's like, it might not stick, but here, it can be really simple. You might realize it later, you might not, you might realize it now, but it's good. It's simple.
100%.
It's aggravating and annoying how simple it is.
Yeah.
And not always, but how simple it can be.
Right. Last question.
Okay.
You can go coaches or athletes. You can go either, or you can do both. But if you had to give like one piece of advice in terms of like separating yourself, right? Like going from that good to great, going from like, regular to championship or average to championship, what would be the biggest piece of advice for a coaches, and or athletes?
Always keep the big picture in mind. I think that's really always sound advice. Yeah. I always think big picture, especially when things are going good, and especially when things are going bad. Big picture, hindsight, take a step back. Always kind of take a step back and look at things for what they are, rather than how you feel about them. I think that's a big quality to have.
So do you mean like perception?
Perception, yeah. I'm very long-winded today. Yeah, just have that perception of success is not linear. Life is not linear. It has a lot of twists and turns. Go for the ride. But going from good to great, or no, going from have your back, have confidence in yourself. And I think the hardest thing is people just believe that you can do it. And again, that sounds so cliche and so stupid, but it's just believe in yourself. And that's, again, it sounds too simple. Like, we're on this podcast and like, what's the best advice I can give you? I can tell you, it's believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And do everything you do, understand how everything connects. Maybe things that don't seem like a big deal actually are a big deal. How something so simple and so little actually could have a huge change. One little, maybe everything you do, it said, do it with enthusiasm. There were teams that, some years you have a team that doesn't really like going to weights or doing the strength and conditioning. And then the great teams love doing that stuff. And even if you didn't like it, you could still go there and have a great time. You can develop that culture. You can change the culture. You can go there and decide to have a good time. Conditioning can be fun. I shouldn't say, or the process of it. You can have a good time and do it. They can exist together. They're not mutually exclusive.
100%.
Working hard and having fun can go together.
Yes. Like, oh my God, like we could have a whole nother conversation on it, especially like, I think in your sport is they think so polar. Everything's black and white. Like there is no middle ground. It's like this way or this way, right? Like if you're not humble, then you're arrogant. I'm like, no,
yeah,
it's not.
A lot more gray. It's right. A lot more in the middle there.
Yeah. There is a spectrum.
Yeah. And I think that, I guess, would be my biggest advice. Like two things can exist at once. You can have fun and work hard at the same time, or you can put in every effort. And I think never losing sight of why you're doing something, having that bigger picture, knowing why you're doing it. It's easy to go through the motions every day, especially if you're working out so much. A lot of life is monotonous, or a lot of training can seem monotonous, but really having that intention of every turn, to me, everything, every time someone took a turn, I was coaching a scenario, like you're in competition, or you're learning. It's a scenario in your head, or a scenario, you're given a scenario that maybe you're a little under rotated that one. Well, you're going to figure out how to stay on your feet, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, but having that intention every turn, every correction you say, there's intention behind it.
Yeah.
Am I saying this for, like, as a coach, am I saying this for me, or am I saying it for them? Am I giving this correction so I can hear myself say it, to like, oh, so I said the correction and I just want to hear myself talk? Or am I giving it for me, or am I giving it for them? Are they actually receiving the information? That would be my biggest coaching advice.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Well, man, it's been a pleasure. I guess lastly too is like, tell everybody, obviously like social media and stuff, like where they can find you. Hopefully, whether you're a coach or an athlete and you have questions, I know you have an absolute plethora of knowledge and wisdom, whether it's just within like your own sport or just being a coach, like being involved in the game. Like I always say, it's like, experience is like the ultimate teacher, right? And you've put years in, and you've experienced like what it takes to not just compete, but like win at a very, very, very high level. So like I would encourage anybody and everybody. That's the cool part about social media, is like you can reach out and you can connect with people that maybe you don't know and you have questions, and a lot of more people are willing to help out. And I find it very fascinating too, in my own experience, is like the most successful ones are usually the most like ones like willing to help out. So I would encourage everybody, like whether you're an athlete, whether you're a coach, to reach out. So kind of tell everybody, obviously, like what would be the best places to reach you.
All my socials, I believe, are Gymdom, like gymnastics and dom, GYMDOM at Gymdom. And well, thank you for having me on. This has been great.
Yeah.
And thank you for all you do. And yeah, anyone, I love helping, and I love gymnastics. I love sport. So anything I can do to help someone either get through a hard time or just want to talk shop, talk about the sport itself, or if anyone needs anything, I love coaching, and I love helping. So.
Well, cool. That's a wrap, everybody. Hopefully, my goal for every episode is to not take everything necessarily and apply it to your life, but like find one piece of nugget, like find that golden nugget that you can take and implement right now in your own life. And maybe it's just a simple shift in the way that you see the world. But it's been awesome to kick off this season of the Championship Corner and have such a rock star coach on here to drop his knowledge and wisdom for you guys. So until next time, love you guys. Talk with you soon.
Thank you. See you later.